This was the case from the beginning, where the mainstream news media just refused to acknowledge the fact that the guy who killed Trooper Gadd was in the country illegally. You would read some of the first stories that came out from the Seattle Times about it, and it wouldn't even mention that Benitez was an illegal. Because that's just how they are, right? They're hopelessly biased. But this is the kind of stuff that pisses me off so much. So this was a post the Seattle Times put out after this sentence came down. A Washington man was sentenced to 10 years in prison Wednesday for a 2024 crash that killed a state trooper. A Washington man. He is not a Washington man. He killed a Washington man. He risked the lives of countless other Washingtonians when he was driving in excess of 100 miles an hour high and drunk. But he is not a Washington man. He's a Mexican national who's been living in this state illegally. Do you think that any other country on the planet, that I could go there legally or illegally, kill someone, let alone a member of law enforcement, and that the local news media would refer to me as a citizen of that country or that state or that city? No, they'd say American woman came into our country and killed one of our citizens. Nowhere else on earth would a story like this be reported like that. A Washington man. It's genuinely insulting. And that aside, it's hiding information from your readers. It's gaslighting them. His immigration status is relevant to the story. Now, do American citizens go out driving high and drunk and kill people? Yeah, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. But in this case, he happened to be in the country illegally. It's not the first time he's broken the law. And because of our sanctuary policies, he was shielded, and he got to break the law in coming here and then break the law in staying here over and over and over again. So there are more relevant layers to the story that from the beginning, the Seattle Times just chose to ignore. Now, at least in this article, and let me just also say really quick, when I read a headline like that, after all the coverage we've done and all the public shaming of the Seattle Times we've done over this story in particular, and then on the day this guy is sentenced, they keep doing it in the headlines. Washington man. I just think to myself, it has to be now an intentional FU to us. Like, oh, we know Brandi's out there railing about this, so we're going to put it in here anyway. Washington man. Just to trigger them. And then when I read the story, I feel like I have proof of that. This is honest to God in the story. The case has gotten considerable attention from right-wing media outlets and social media personalities because Benitez Santana is in the U.S. illegally, and his attorneys attempted to get the charges dismissed because prosecutors communicated with ICE in violation of state law. Think about it. The case has gotten considerable attention from right-wing media outlets and social media personalities. First of all, the case should be getting significant attention from everyone. A state trooper died. I've been covering the news in this state for a long time. Anytime a member of law enforcement dies or is killed in the line of duty, not dies, killed, murdered in the line of duty, let me choose my words very carefully, it gets significant attention because it's a significant event. But in this case, it's only getting significant attention because the right-wing news media, they're referring to me. Come on, who else are they referring to? The right-wing news media and social media personalities are mad that this guy's illegal? No, we're mad that he's illegal and that he killed a state trooper. We're mad that he's illegal and he's committed crimes here before. We're mad that he's illegal and our sanctuary policies protected him from deportation. We're mad over all of it, but it shouldn't be a right-wing issue. And are you telling me that that's only something that upsets the right wing? Is that an admission that the left isn't mad about it? Is that an admission that the left is not mad when someone comes into our country illegally and kills a state trooper? Because that's what it sounds like, Seattle Times. That sounds like an admission that it doesn't bother you one bit. And it doesn't bother them one bit because I had to look. So this is a pretty lengthy article. I want to show you how much of this article they dedicated to painting Raul Benitez Santana's ordeal as a sob story. Take a look at this. If you're watching the show, highlighted in yellow. That entire chunk, which I would say is a fourth of the entire story, is about painting a sob story about this illegal immigrant and how he's not a bad guy. He's a good guy. In a story about him being sentenced to 11 years for murdering a state trooper, that is how much space in the article the Seattle Times dedicates to trying to personalize and empathize with the illegal alien criminal. Let me read part of it to you. I'll just read it. I just read the first part about how, it got significant attention from right-wing media. Though Benitez Santana's immigration status wasn't explicitly discussed Wednesday, defense attorney Emily Hancock, who represented him alongside Tiffany Mecca, told the judge Benitez Santana came to the U.S. as a 6-month-old baby. He grew up in Burien, worked in his family's auto body shop, and moved to Everett shortly before the fatal crash. And this is a quote from his defense attorney. When Raul was 16, he learned something about his identity that changed what opportunities would be available to him and how he would be seen amongst his community members and other members of Washington state. A father of 3, Hancock said, Benitez Santana has been in daily contact with his children and has taken parenting and other classes while in jail. She said Benitez Santana is absolutely remorseful, but had been instructed not to show any emotion during trial because his every expression would be scrutinized by jurors, members of the media, and other courtroom attendees. Hancock also said Benitez Santana has been advised not to exercise his right to speak during sentencing because it could impact his appeal. This is an illegal alien who killed a cop. He's been here and he works at his family's auto body shop and he's been taking parenting classes and he is remorseful and he's just didn't look remorseful during the proceedings because everybody would say something about his facial expressions because he's in the country illegally. So now I want you to compare that to, also visually speaking, the amount of space they dedicated to personalizing and getting people to sympathize with Benitez Santana and the amount of space in the article they gave to personalizing the actual victim, State Trooper Christopher Gadd. The same. The exact same space. They spent just as much time personalizing the illegal alien killer as they did personalizing Trooper Christopher Gadd. And they left that to the end. They personalized the killer before they personalized the victim in the story. So if you didn't make it that far down in the Seattle Times article, as we know so many readers don't, well, you would have just read them personalizing the killer because they prioritized that. Oh, and then by the way, if you wanted to get into the comments section and point out some of these clear journalistic failures, they turned comments off. So you can't comment on the story. Wonder why? Gee. They say it's because it's a particularly sensitive story. No, because you don't want people to go in there and rail at you for calling him a Washington man and painting his sad story about, being in the U.S. illegally. And I never got this when they say, well, he's been here for 15 years or so. He's been here for 15, 20 years. Why do they always think that it makes it more sad if you've been here illegally longer? It's like, no, you got away with it for much longer. And it's not an instance, by the way, where he came here as a baby, because I've said I support citizenship for DACA recipients. I think if you were brought here into this country through no fault of your own, when you were a tiny baby, it looks like he was brought here at 6 months old, and you came here and you started going to school here and you worked here and you paid taxes and you didn't commit any new law violations, then maybe you should get citizenship if you were a DACA recipient. This isn't that. He had new law violations. Significant law violations. And even with those, under the protection of our sanctuary policies, he felt so compelled, so safe, so untouchable here that he got high and drunk, and then he drove at over 100 miles an hour into the back of a state trooper. And then his defense team had the audacity to argue at trial that he couldn't possibly get a fair trial because he's in the country as illegally. Woe is him. And all the right-wing media outlets will paint him as a bad guy. Well, hate to break it to you, he is a bad guy. He is a bad guy. You wouldn't know that by reading the Seattle Times, because the Seattle Times treats an illegal alien murderer the same as they treat a hero Washington State Patrol trooper. In their eyes, there is no daylight between the two of them. It is absolutely shameful. It's beyond shameful. And I used to hate the phrase fake news. In fact, if you were industrious, you could probably search in my past social media posts and find a time way back when I was working in mainstream news that I encouraged anyone who used the phrase fake news to just unfollow me because it bothered me so much. Now, do I think that the phrase fake news has been applied to people who haven't deserved it? Yes. But I absolutely believe fake news is a thing. I absolutely believe the Seattle Times is one of the worst offenders. And as much as I would like to, again, ignore them and be like, well, they're irrelevant. I mean, our daily reach on social media exceeds the reach of the Seattle Times. It just does. It's not even close in terms of if you're comparing our social media reach to their circulation. But we're reaching people who are like-minded. We're reaching people who look at this and be like, oh my God, what the hell is the Seattle Times talking about? We're reaching people who already think independently and critically about these issues. The Seattle Times is just feeding the beast that allows Democrats to stay in power in Washington state. That's who's reading the Seattle Times, is the vote blue no matter who crowd. And they read stories like this and they form a particular narrative about it, about, oh, this is just an illegal immigrant. This is an immigrant who's being treated unfairly. Doesn't matter if he killed a state trooper. The Seattle Times has lost its damn mind. Absolutely insane.